Great. Well, first, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. We are proud to have Chris Tiné, who is our 2022 Distinguished Alumnus in Residence. And we are welcoming him from Philadelphia, which we are just so thankful for the virtual option so that we can really bring in great voices and great experiences no matter where our Bates community is in the world and still have an immediate impact on students. So what I would like to do is I'm going to share my screen and just give you a quick introduction. So my name is Karen Finocchio Lubeck. I'm a member of the class of 1992 and current president of the College Key. I'm also joined by Chris Tiné, who is class of 1996, who is our distinguished speaker. And I'd also like to welcome the students, the faculty, and the staff, especially for taking time out of your busy days and understanding that digital technology and virtual sessions have overwhelmed our inboxes, so I appreciate the time to learn about the College Key. Who is the College Key? We are a student and alumni honor organization who are elected by virtue of leadership in academic or extracurricular work or for their volunteer leadership performance. And the important part about the Key and what we really make a focused effort on is our student impact and being able to bring marquee events like the Distinguished Alumni in Residence programming has been a very important component for the Key. Fellow College Key luminaries include the late former Secretary of State Ed Muskie, Professor Marcus Bruce, class of 77, a fellow class of 92, classmate and friend Lisa Genova, as well as poet Elizabeth Hobbs, class of 51. We are a dues-funded organization and we partner with the college. We are our own separate organization, but we do give direct back to the student impact. So you can see the different areas as explained on this slide. So what is DAIR? DAIR is our wonderful acronym for the Distinguished Alumni in Residence program. And this program brings together students and alumni and creates an opportunity to hear and learn from impactful stories by remarkable alums. A few recent DAIR honorees include HubSpot's Chief People Officer, Katie Burke, class of 03, Boston Globe editor, Brian McGrory, class of 84, US Congressman Jared Golden, class of 2011, Microsoft senior researcher Susan Dumais, class of 75, and McLean Hospital behavioral genetics researcher Dr. Ed Maloney in 91. Last year, we welcomed Stephanie Smith, class of 87, and this year we are thrilled to welcome Chris Tiné, class of 1996. Chris is an Emmy award-winning product and media executive who has worked in television, publishing, and education. Chris is currently Chief Product Officer at Richardson Sales Performance, where his teams focus on product innovation and are reimagining on-the-job learning. Previously, he has served as VP of Product at 2080, and Head of Digital Product at Macmillan. From 2003 to 2013, Chris was a New York-based television producer at the BBC, PBS, and for 6 years at NBC News, where his team earned 4 Emmy nominations and an Emmy Award and a Webby Award for their digital work. Chris graduated cum laude from Bates with a BA in Rhetoric and has a Master of Philosophy from the University of Cambridge and an MBA from Columbia Business School. He is a member of the New Media Council of the Producers Guild of America and lives in New York City. What I am very excited about is Chris's journey that is not the linear trajectory. It has evolved and shifted and turned, and it answers that fabulous question that so many Bates students get asked: what are you gonna do with a X degree? And in his case, it was, what are you gonna do with a rhetoric degree? So on that note, Chris, very excited. I will stop sharing my screen and very excited to welcome you as you share your knowledge and your wisdom, not only to the members who are on the call, but certainly the Bates community broader.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's great to be with you. It is a huge honor to be asked to do this, and it's great to re-engage with the college and to meet all of you. So thank you for spending some time with us. When Karen emailed me and asked if I wanted to participate in DAIR, I thought she was daring me to do something. I thought, oh, for sure, you must be, you can't possibly be picking me for this. You know, you talk to Congress people and the editor of the Boston Globe and Stephanie Smith, who is amazing in her career in the Marine Corps. But I am really excited to take a little bit of time to talk to you about kind of my career trajectory, how it's evolved, some thoughts that I have as a leader in business and as somebody who spends a lot of time mentoring and managing and developing people in the workforce, hiring people into the workforce and then helping them develop in their career path or their career journey. So I've put a couple of slides together. I will share this just to make it a little bit more visual. Are you guys able to see that? Okay, wonderful. So we start with what was the assignment again? I think Karen laid it out well. Think a little bit about some thoughts about my career. I'm going to take about 30 minutes, I hope, and share sort of the trajectory of my career. But I also wanted to reflect a little bit on how Bates set me up for success in the work that I have been doing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did at Bates and why I think that was foundational. And hopefully as you engage with this recording or talk with students in the work that you do, it'd be helpful for them to reflect on how their time at Bates is ultimately positioning them for success. So I start where all business people like to start, and that is with graphs. Business people love graphs. If you're at Bates now, learn how to make graphs. It's very, very, very persuasive when you get into the business world. What is a career trajectory? This is a graph of how people think their career develops. As you can probably tell from the title of this talk, it's never a straight line. That graph just never happens. It doesn't happen once you're hired into a company. You don't move up and to the right in a linear fashion. It doesn't work that way when you graduate from college and go into the workforce either. Very few times have I ever hired somebody into a business who had a degree in exactly the thing that I was hiring somebody to do. So what is critically important to think about is not just to be honest with yourself about what the graph really looks like. This is probably a more accurate representation of how you get from left to right over the course of your career. But to understand what drives you and what value you bring. So that as you think about making those steps, whether that's from Bates into the world of your first job, whether it's from your first job to your next job, or thinking about career advancement, you have some guiding principles and a sense of the value that you bring to the table. So there's a guy named Bill George who was CEO of a company called Medtronic, which is a very large med devices company in Boston. I went on to be a professor at Harvard Business School and written several books. And he talks about this concept of your true north. For me, this has been a useful thing to think about. As I think about the values that drive us, I think about the idea of purposeful work and what that means. Your true north is your set of values. It could be your mission, your purpose. It could be the mission or purpose of a company. I think also it's not just your values, plural, but it is your value. What is the value that you bring into an organization? And have you thought about not only what is your pedigree, what does your resume say, what does your transcript say about the courses that you took, but what people in business care about is the value that brings to them. What does that mean for their organization? What does that mean for their business? And we talk, I think, frequently about the idea of transferable skills. Transferable skills are those skills that you build as you go through your life, that you can transfer from one job to the next to the next. Those are so critically important. But what is equally important is being able to talk about what that means for the business or for the person who's hiring. What is the value they're going to get from hiring you? And so it's both understanding what your value is, but also being able to talk about it. I think having those guiding principles or that true north is something that we develop over time. It continues to evolve. I didn't have it when I graduated from high school. And so thanks to my mother, who took it upon herself to take out an ad in my high school yearbook. When I graduated, she shared the following wisdom. As you travel along life's highway, don't forget to stop and eat the roses. And I keep this on my desk because I think what this means for me, not only is it just some of Gary Larson's best work from The Far Side, if you're familiar, it's about both the journey, life's highway, remembering to stop and not just smell the roses or savor them or look at them from afar, but eat it, grab it, digest it, pick up life's experiences and use them to the fullest, and use each experience to then take you to the next experience. And so I have kept that close as I have thought about my trajectory. So I thought I'd start at the beginning and just talk a little bit about Bates. I got to Bates in 1992. First thing I did was went to the bookstore and bought a sweatshirt. And I thought, great, I took some AP bio in high school, totally want to be a biology major. Crew looked really interesting. People were talking about it during my first year trip. So I want to row crew. I thought that would be great. My line was straight, right? I got to freshman orientation and my line was straight. As you already know, I was not a biology major. It turns out they had labs at all kinds of hours that I was not prepared for. And I really was excited about crew. And then I found out that their practice started at 5:30 in the morning on the Androscoggin River. And so crew didn't happen either. So that was the first bend or twist in my undergraduate trajectory. I neither wound up in the major I thought I was going to, and I also didn't wind up in the sport that I thought I was going to do. So I started to look around. I started to say, what other, where are the roses? What roses can I eat around here that might be more fulfilling or more interesting? And I wound up in the theater department. I did a lot of work with the theater department, with the Robinson Players, the cast of one of our shows there. Lighting designer for the Modern Dance Company, worked closely with Marcy Plavin, for those of you who remember Marcy, and Leonard Plavin. She was an incredible mentor to me, and made lasting friendships and a creative community that I didn't go out seeking it. It kind of found me. And I think for me, the work that I did in theater, has stayed with me partly because it was unexpected. I did not expect for it to have the kind of creative impact that it had on my life. And I'll talk in a little bit about how that's actually something that I draw on a regular basis in my work today, in my profession. But things really took a complete other left turn when I discovered the Rhetoric department and the debate program. I don't know if anyone here would remember Bob Branham. Bob was a professor of rhetoric for 20 years at Bates College. He died in 1997, the year after I graduated, very early in life, in his late 40s. But he was a towering figure at Bates when I came to the college, and I went looking for a theater department meeting. They were doing a show, and I wanted to go find out more about that show. So I went into Pettigrew Hall. I sat down in the lecture hall, right in the middle of the row, about halfway back. The room filled up, people on either side of me, and Bob Branham, this guy with the rimmed glasses and the mustache, walked in and said, "Hi, welcome to the debate team." And I thought, oh, I am in the wrong place, but I can't get out of this room because there's so many people in here. And they proceeded to put on a presentation debate. where two sides, debated two sides of an issue. I wish I could remember what topic it was. But at the end of the debate, Bob picked people out of the audience at random to stand up and give what's called a floor speech. That's when somebody in the audience has to stand up and speak about what's been debated before the audience decides. They pick one side or the other. And so I gave a floor speech. And afterwards, he came up to me and he said, I don't know what you're planning to do on Friday, but I believe you should be at the debate team meeting. And I thought, wow, okay, here is a left turn that I wasn't expecting. A door had opened. And I, said, okay, I'm prepared to walk through that door. Let's see what happens. So I went to the debate team meeting, and that became a pivotal move for me in my career at Bates and ultimately in my life. Debate and rhetoric has shaped the way I think about the world, and it definitely has shaped the way I think about leadership and management in my career. There are three things that I really took away from the debate program at Bates and rhetoric, and they all impact my career in ways that I'll talk about. The first is kind of the three core concepts of rhetoric: ethos, pathos, and logos. Those come from the Greek words for ethics, pity, and logic. And in rhetoric, it's all about persuasion. It's all about making a compelling case. You have to do three things. You have to be credible and establish credentials. That's key to having the audience trust you. You have to elicit an emotional response, and that's getting your audience to feel something. And logos is making an argument based on reason or facts, and that's getting your audience to think and ultimately to underscore what you're saying. Those three things continue to shape how I think about media. They continue to shape how I think about leadership, and I'll talk a little bit more about those. But that was a gift that Bob gave me and that I carry with me. The second is thinking about argumentation. These are actually notes from one of my Bates debates. I actually went into my attic the other day, and I have a box of every debate I ever participated in at Bates. I have all of my notes here. They're on paper. So Pat, we probably should have a conversation about how I should be thinking digitally about that. But what you see here is called a flow, and a flow is how debaters take notes to link arguments from one speech to the next speech and make sure they're thinking about the logical development of that argument. It's a neat party trick, but it's been an incredible skill to have developed and carry through in business. And the third skill, which many CEOs talk about, it's kind of the dirty secret of getting ahead in the high-paced business world, is developing the ability to sleep anywhere. Oftentimes that's in an airplane seat. Sometimes it's in between meetings. For me, this was at a debate tournament. You'll see some folks there: Lucy Fowler, who was my debate partner, who went on to Yale Law; Jason Hall in the middle, who was a debater, frequently discussed as a mayoral candidate in St. Louis, head of the Chamber of Commerce; and Barbara Raths over on the right-hand side, who was for many years chair of the Alumni Council, so at Bates. So great friends, great skills that I have taken forward and really were built in the cauldron of the rhetoric department at Bates. I went on to have a pretty successful career in debate. That's my partner Kwok Tran on the right, with President Harwood. After we had won the Bates Bowdoin Cup, we took the cup back from Bowdoin that year, and I stayed on after Bates with Bob to catalog and write an illustrated history of the debate program at Bates, which Bob published shortly before he died, called Stanton's Elm, which I highly recommend to you. So that was a great project. And I stay in touch with all those people and come back to the college regularly to check in on that. I mention this because, I think as we start to think about like leading people, managing, mentoring, there's a quote that Steve Jobs is famous for that I think about all the time. And that is that management is about persuading people to do things they don't want to do. Leadership is about inspiring people to do things they never could. Bob was a leader in the sense that he made everybody believe that they could be more, they could be successful. What rhetoric has given me that I take forward, my transferable skill that I bring forward into the management sphere, is going beyond just using persuasive skills to convince people to do what they don't want to do necessarily or aren't excited about doing. But it is about how you use all those rhetorical skills to inspire people to do more than they thought they were capable of. And I think that is, as I think about my transferable skills coming out of a liberal arts undergrad education, that was a key one. So from there, where do we go? The door opened, and thanks to Bob Branham, he put me forward for the national debating team tour of the UK and Portugal. I tried forever to find pictures of us actually having a debate. The best I could find was us arguing over pints of beer in a British pub. But it is true. We went around to many universities in the UK and in Portugal, and represented the United States in several debates. That's my partner, Richard, and I, after having won the Middle Temple Mace in a debating competition. But what was really important about that, not only had Bob from one world opened up a door for me to move into another world, which was this debating opportunity, but it was while I was in England that I met the person who would go on to become my graduate advisor, and ultimately invited me to apply to and enroll at the University of Cambridge. And I moved to the UK in 1998 to pursue graduate studies, and also to teach. And so it was while I was at Cambridge that I started teaching both undergrads and graduate students in the architecture faculty. And this will become important later because I didn't really know I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't really have any particular desire to go into education. But it was a summer job while I was at Cambridge. So there were these summer programs that would bring students over, and we would teach summer classes and things like that. And then ultimately I got onto teaching graduate students. I also started to develop a real interest in film while I was at Cambridge. And so I sort of grabbed that with both hands. And when I came back to New York after graduate school, started making short films with several people who I was friendly with in New York. And we started a nonprofit film company called RIPFEST, Collaborative Film Project. And the idea was we would get strangers together. They were all professional filmmakers of some sort, a writer, producer, editor, actors, choreographers. And we'd bring these professionals together and run a collaborative process to teach them about collaborating with one another and to create short films in a space of 16 days. So we got all these people together, and if your team had something available to them, you would make a film about that thing, right? So we couldn't write a script and then go out and find all these locations and things like that. So if your team, for example, had access to a small airplane, then the team would write a movie about riding small airplanes, and we'd film in airplanes. If your team had, for example, access to 14 New York City, Radio City Rockettes in bowling pin costumes, and also a t-shirt that says "Talk is cheap, dance is deep," then you wrote a film for that. And it was an incredible exercise in thinking about working to what you have, thinking about embracing the constraints that are put in front of you as part of the collaborative process. If all you had is two people who are willing to kiss and a shopping cart, then put the camera guy in the shopping cart and roll him down the sidewalk, and you can make a great film. Sometimes it led to incredible collaborations, like if you can get Academy Award winner Olympia Dukakis to come to your friend's grandmother's house and make a movie about a turkey that gets burnt, then make a Thanksgiving movie with Olympia Dukakis and just embrace the door that opens there. That was a fantastic project. It taught me a lot about filmmaking. It taught me even more about teaching collaboration. And it ran for about 14 seasons in New York. And ultimately, for me, opened the next door, which was, how do I think about making that my career? How do I go from taking a hobby, something that was effectively a hobby, and make the next career pivot and create a job out of that? And so that was when I started talking to people that I had worked with in the filmmaking project and moved into television. And my first job in TV was in 2004 during the elections. They wouldn't trust me with the camera yet, but we worked on a show called Staffers. This is Doug, who was my camera guy, who I ran in the field as a producer. So I was the producer. I would get him access and work out all of his logistics and think about the storyline. Doug would take the camera and go chase John Kerry around from campaign stop to campaign stop, as we went. Eventually, I graduated and they let me play with the camera. Went out to Wyoming and traveled the country making shows for the Travel Channel. It was one of our crews from the Travel Channel. If anybody's a Top Chef fan, that's a woman named Nilu Muhammad on the right-hand side, is a Top Chef judge and food writer. Some undercover work for documentaries. So this is going in and you see my assumed identity, Jeff. We went in undercover to a food factory and made documentaries for the BBC about what happens behind the scenes there. But also lifestyle programming. If anyone's familiar with a show called What Not to Wear, which ran for about 20 seasons. I was a producer on that show for several seasons with Stacey and Clinton. One thing I will share with any students who are interested in media, don't ask people to film on a boat. It never goes well. They didn't forgive me for that shoot for several weeks afterwards, but it was a great experience and helped me build a network, which ultimately opened another door for me afterwards. And then I ultimately landed at PBS on a show called History Detectives. If anyone's a fan of Antiques Roadshow, the guy holding the red folder is a guy named Wes Cowan, who's an appraiser and host on Antiques Roadshow. And he's holding a document that Thomas Jefferson signed and circulated around Washington, D.C. to raise money for the first public school in Washington. And so we went to Monticello to talk to historians about that document and tell the story of the first public schools in D.C. I share that because, not only was TV a way for me to pivot from a hobby to a career, but I was drawing on all those skills from Bates in order to do it. When you think about compelling documentaries or television, getting people to stop, engage in the story that you're telling, get hooked, stay with you for a half hour or an hour of time, it was those skills of understanding ethos, pathos, and logos. How are we going to credentialize this story or this program? How are we going to inspire an emotional response in the audience? And how are we going to lay out a story or an argument based on facts that ultimately was compelling? And it was those transferable skills that I learned at Bates and brought into television that ultimately set me up for success as a TV producer. I mentioned that opened a door. So one day after a shoot at PBS, I got a telephone call from someone at NBC News. It was unexpected. And they said, somebody from What Not to Wear, the TV show that I had worked on previously, told us that you are not only a TV producer, but you also used to be a teacher. We are creating an education division at NBC News, and you may be the only person in New York who fits this Venn diagram of having one foot in television and one foot in education. Would you be interested in coming and joining us? And so I went to NBC News on a 6-month contract to help them with a project called IQ.com, spelled ICUE. It was a cool idea. It was a platform for AP students to study for the AP exams that drew content from the NBC News Film and Video Archive. So we chopped up little clips from the historic archive of NBC Universal going back to the 1930s and 40s. We aligned them to topics in the AP exam. We wrote quiz questions about them. We made games out of them. And it was a way to engage students with primary source material as a way of preparing for academics. It was a great idea. It was such a cool project. Turns out there was absolutely no business model behind it. And it was as much as we learned about doing the project, two things happened at the same time. One, we discovered there was no business model behind it. We had no way to make money. And two, the 2008 financial crisis happened and half the team was laid off. I share that because that was, in one way, a door closing, in another way, a door opening, and an unexpected opportunity for me to step out of being a TV producer and into the world of digital products. So when half the team was laid off, they laid off the digital product organization, and I was left to figure out, what does digital product mean in a world where we're taking television material and using it for education. Product development is interesting. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but product development really involves two big skills. One is walking a mile in the shoes of your user. So in this case, what does it mean to be a teacher or a student? I had been a teacher, so that was helpful. It's about empathizing with the user or with the customer. And the second is constant reinvention. It is about constantly looking at your product and saying, how could this be different or better to better serve the need of the user? And so we sort of wore both of those hats at the same time, and we reinvented ourselves. And so we took all of the great content. We clipped all these clips, 10, 15,000 video clips, all aligned, metadata was tagged to them. It was a great, robust library of content, and we had to create a new product out of that. And so we created a new product called NBC News Archives on Demand, which was a teaching resource for teachers to take those clips and embed clips into their lesson plans. And that actually turned out to be a reasonably successful product. We had better what's called product market fit. And the guy that you see there, who looks like he's about 30 years old, was actually the CFO of NBC News at the time. This British guy named Adam Jones. And Adam, basically put me in charge of figuring out how we were going to, create this product to better meet the needs of teachers and try and create a thriving business out of it. Ultimately, that product exploded. We renamed it NBC Learn, became a whole learning organization within NBC News. We did partnerships with Meet the Press and the Today Show to get the word out. And then Lester Holt got involved. And there we are at a teacher conference talking to social studies teachers about how to use these clips. So we were able to sort of take something that didn't work, reinvent it, walk a mile in the shoes of the user, and ultimately recreate this product that once we brought it out to teachers was very, very well received and continues on to this day. It also sort of gave us a platform for expanding the work that we were doing in education. And so I was tapped to lead a group at NBC called Education Nation, which was a large national conversation around the future of education reform. And you see we were in all over the country, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Phoenix. You see our main stage there on the rink at Rockefeller Center with Prometheus kind of behind us. And we invited world leaders. You see Warren and Susie Buffett and Melinda Gates on the bottom talking to Tom Brokaw, Mitt Romney, Barack Obama came. It was an incredible conversation to talk about and highlight the solutions around education and education reform in the United States. So that was a real privilege. It led to a lot of great work, but it was the last project that I did at NBC that really was a smash hit that really went big, and that was called The Science of the Olympics. We said, what if we could take this education group that we were doing, again, constant reinvention, who else could benefit from this? How could we think beyond just social studies? We were hearing, well, that's great, archival clips are great for social studies teachers, but what about science teachers? What about math teachers? So we said, well, what if we take the assets and the resources we have around education and storytelling and we applied it to the Olympics? And so we created a series called The Science of the Winter Olympics, partnered with the Vancouver Olympics team. Lester Holt anchored it with us. This is the beginning of Slapshot Physics, where we look at the physics behind and the mechanical physics behind ice hockey. Interviewed people like Julie Chu, Olympian, an ice hockey Olympian. And that was the project that ultimately really took off with the backing of the National Science Foundation and took us to the Emmy Awards. This is a picture of the Emmy Awards that I did not take. We actually, funny story, we were up again in our category. We were up against, our little project was up against Major League Baseball, the NFL, and PGA Golf. And tickets were $500 to go to the Emmys. And we said, there is literally no way we are going to win an Emmy against Major League Baseball, the NFL, and professional golf. And so none of us went. One person went, texted us a picture of the Emmy, and lo and behold, at about 11 o'clock at night, we got a text saying we had won an Emmy, which was pretty exciting. Turns out when you win an Emmy, all your office mates want to get a piece of that. So it lifted up the team. It was great. It was a team win. It wasn't just me, and it really it was a pivotal moment in my career. Now it is sitting at home where it holds things like Christmas decorations on a regular basis. So that is what it's like to have an Emmy at home. It did, though, open another door. And as my career at NBC had evolved, and I was pretty happy with where things were going, I was nagged by the initial failure of IQ. I didn't understand why we would take something to market without a business plan. And I went and talked to Adam, who is the guy I was talking to you about before. And I said, I want to go to business school. I want to understand. I've spent all this time on the creative side, the storytelling side, but I don't really understand the business of what we're doing. And so it was both by putting myself out for that, but also by drawing on my network that he sponsored me to go to Columbia Business School. And I did the executive program at Columbia, enrolled in 2010 with my classmates, and happy to talk about business school and professional education. I have, much I could share about that experience. I will say it was not the classes that ultimately stayed with me from Columbia. It was the network to some extent, but I think what I took away from business school and what has been most powerful was a genuine curiosity in how businesses work. What are the mechanisms behind how businesses work? And one of the things that, when I interview students or people earlier in their career to come and work with us, one of the things I'm particularly interested in is, to what extent are you genuinely curious about how our business functions? I think oftentimes, people come in and they say, oh, I really want to work for you because you have a logo, or because you're going to pay me a lot, or because I can get to this point in my career. But remember when we were sort of talking about values before, one of the values that I look for is authentic curiosity, and particularly authentic curiosity into how the business works. And for me, that was really a direct result of going to Columbia. I spent a bunch of time in India while I was at Columbia, and one of the assignments that the professor gave us was every day we had to just walk into a business at random and go interview the business owner about how that business worked. And because it was a different country, it was a different context, it was much easier to do. And this is a car dealership, the size of, I don't even know what it's the size of. It's probably the size of your kitchen. But this is a guy in the green shirt there in the middle in India who sells little cars in a not very wealthy area. And, me and my classmates spent a day with him really digging in and understanding what are the mechanisms that make his business run? How does that impact the community? Talking to some kids there whose cousin had just bought a car and it was going to completely revolutionize their world. And for me, what came out of Columbia Business School was kind of a real genuine interest in kind of what makes businesses tick. And something that I think is, has continued to be something that I am interested in, and I look for when I'm hiring people to come and work with us. From Columbia, I left NBC for a variety of reasons. One door closed, another door opened. And I wound up at a company called Macmillan Learning. And Macmillan was an interesting company. I am holding a dinosaur skull there. Because their products, when I got there, were dinosaurs. They're such a fascinating company, amazing textbook authors, the best in their field, brands, and a genuine commitment to learning that was just second to none, but virtually no way to engage learners, to think about what matters to kids in a college classroom, and connect with that audience. Again, the ethos, pathos, and logos of teaching. And so they brought me in to help them rethink their media strategy. How could they take all of the knowledge and rigor of what they did and translate it and make it more relevant to another generation? And so I went back to my network. You might remember that image from the film company days. The person who designed those posters is one of the best. She had volunteered her time to do our posters for our little nonprofit. She's actually an incredibly talented user experience designer. And so I went to my network, I brought her across, and we completely rethought how how Macmillan delivered digital learning in the in the learning management space. So that was pretty exciting and a great opportunity for my network. I had paid that forward to her, and she came back and paid that back to me, and that was pretty exciting. I also got particularly interested in Macmillan in agility, which is, for those of you who may be familiar, a way of working, particularly in software development, but increasingly in other parts of business, where you break work down into small sprints, and you plan it, you develop it, you test it, and then you do another sprint. So you're breaking work down into smaller and smaller pieces. And that just started to become a passion, which ultimately went on to shape what I do today. It also was a great experience. Some of you may be familiar with Basil Kalani, an ed tech innovator and Bates alum from, I think, class of 98 or 99. And so Basil and I were able to go, leverage my Bates network and go out and talk about the work that we were doing at Macmillan with agility and rethinking their media strategy. So that was pretty gratifying. And all of that has led me to the business where I am today. I now work for a company called Richardson, or Richardson Sales Performance, to be more accurate. It was started by a woman named Linda Richardson in the late 1970s. All 5'4" of Linda Richardson used to go up to Wall Street on the train, and her thing was teaching bankers interpersonal skills, so that her first book, which is a New York Times bestseller, was called Stop Telling, Start Selling. And basically she was trying to teach these guys in suits to keep their mouths shut and listen to their customers, and they would be more successful. And she grew that into quite a successful business. She's no longer with the company, but she really innovated this thing called the 6 critical skills. And these are the interpersonal skills of not just sales, but business. The soft skills that enable us to connect with people, engender trust, and ultimately be more successful in business and as leaders and managers. Not unlike Macmillan, though, the products were kind of dinosaurs. And so it was my job to come in. This is what things looked like when I got there. I literally put all the programs up on the wall and said, oh my goodness, what are we going to do with this? And I went back to my flowcharts and I said, okay, what we have to do, we have to line all these things up and we have to create compelling arguments for how we teach all of this content. What are the materials going to look like? This is what training materials looked like when I got here. How are we going to deal with that? We're going to go back to our old friends, ethos, pathos, and logos. How are we going to make something more credible, something that inspires an emotional response, something that connects better with the learner? And so we redesigned everything at Richardson, all based in data and evidence, but to feel more like a magazine, to feel more like contemporary media, and really rethink the training space. The same when it comes to bringing things to life for learners. So we're moving increasingly off of print materials into video. There I am with my little camera, but now what we do is drawing on those TV skills from 10 years, 15 years ago. We bring people together and we act out business scenarios so that people can see how to be more effective in a customer dialogue or in a business coaching scenario. And then how do we deliver that in a great user experience? Drawing off of Macmillan, brought my designers back to the table and created a digital product that looks and feels more like a mobile media product. You see me there using it on an airplane. It was basically taking a whole new approach, to how we think about delivering bite-sized digital learning at scale. And so our team was able to deliver that. And then part of being a product leader is not just about building the product. I have a whole team, that I lead to help me build the product, but it's going out and talking about it with customers and with users. And so, there I am in front of a group at a conference, drawing on all those rhetoric skills, back to my debate days, to get up in front of a room full of people, talk about what we're doing, go solicit feedback, stop telling and start listening, and listen to what customers are asking for next. And so that's where I am. We have evolved. It's been interesting. 2020 will be known for me for two things. One, COVID obviously was big. The second was we merged with our biggest competitor at exactly the same time that we moved entirely remote. And so we executed over the last 2 years a merger entirely by Zoom. And it's been, really interesting. It has given me an opportunity to go back and think about agility again, how we create agile workflows. It's given me a chance to go back and think about my interpersonal skills. How am I engaging with my team? And it's given us an opportunity to innovate the business one more time. And so we're now starting to think more and more about that constant reinvention. How do we go reinvent the thing that we just built 3 years ago? It continues to do well, but work is changing. So how do we think about taking an agile approach to work? How do we think about fitting learning in the flow of work as a way to future-proof the organization? And so today what we're doing is thinking about introducing concepts of agility into the way sellers work and managers work as a way to help them be more successful in a period of continued disruption. So that is where I have gotten to. I will just share two final things, as I wrap up. There's a lot of science in how people respond to leaders and think about leaders. And one of the things that I think a lot about is what people who I work with need. There's ethos, pathos, and logos, the ability to persuade people, but there's also what I think of as like purposeful leadership. It is, how do you truly understand what the people who you work with need, and position yourself to help deliver it. Self-determination theory is something that I think a lot about. People have three fundamental needs in life. One is the ability to feel autonomous, to feel like they have control over their own destiny. The second is competence. People have to feel like, if you make somebody feel dumb, they're never gonna, engage with you and achieve more. So they need to feel competent. And the third is relatedness. They need to feel connected to something bigger. And as I think about purposeful work and what that has meant in my career, it's not just about me finding purpose in my work. It's about helping other people find the purpose in their own work. And that is relatedness, feeling tied more closely to a cause. The other side of that, and Maya Angelou wrapped it up better than I can. I keep this piece of paper on every desk I ever work on. And this is something that I, first learned at Bates and carried through with me as a leader, is that people will long forget what you say and they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And I think, when I think about my time at Bates, I think about the degree of support. I think about the network of people. Part of what has been so impactful is the way it has made me feel, and I try and pay that forward to the way I lead other people. Last thoughts from me. The network is the engine that drives your career. I think, taking a course and moving into an internship and getting your first job, all critically important. But if I could advise students on one place to spend their time, it is thinking about their network. How do you build it? How do you meet people? How do you help them see your value? The second is, when opportunities present themselves, are you ready to say yes? That has been the story of my career, the winding nature, the nonlinear path. But career opportunities will always present themselves. The question is not, is there going to be an opportunity? The question is, are you ready to say yes to what opportunity is in front of you, and then use that to step to the next opportunity? And so I think that's a critically important thing to ask ourselves at various points in our career. But certainly something that's driven me. And then the last is, just I think how you do the work is just as important as the work that you do. And so I think that's equally true, for students entering the workforce as it is for folks who are later career. I've taken a lot of your time. Oh, one last thought. Go Bates. I mean, the people I met at Bates, this is my reunion 5-6 years ago. That's Jess Anthony, my best friend, who still lives in Portland. I mean, this crowd is still together. It's the same people I was hanging out with freshman year. We see each other all the time, and your Bates network is part of your network. It's not just your friends, but the people who help you move from one step to the next in your career, and give you the support. So there we are at the Blue Goose. Thank you so much.
Chris, that was fantastic, and it really very fun. The irony is I have that exact same Maya Angelou quote that I have carried with me for a very long time. So it was very very striking when you posted that. And coming into a reunion year, we might have to rival that picture in front of the Blue Goose. So.
I hope it's still
there. But again, I think the words of wisdom and certainly what you've shared, and most importantly, about opportunity and thinking how you think about opportunity, and if you're ready to take that chance, and how Bates has connected you to recognizing that, and in some cases taking a bit of a leap of faith, even though there's uncertainty. So on behalf of the College Key, I want to be sensitive to people's time. We have probably time for one quick question. If not, feel free.
Say, I'm happy to spend a few more minutes if people would like. I apologize. I went a little bit long on the presentation, but I would like to have a conversation if people want to. So let me know.
Karen, may I? Chris, I could ask you another hour's worth of questions, because there's a tremendous number of things that you talked about that interact with learning here at the college. Competency-based education, lifelong learning, media and digital literacy. I mean, just a million different areas. We have a large, we're pushing hard in the area of open educational resources. Mm-hmm. And it actually goes directly against your business model from your NBC Learn days, right?
It does. So
it'd be wonderful to have a conversation about that and talk about that. But I'm going to limit myself to one question, which is to ask you whether in your current position, whether you're thinking about all of the scientific neurological research that's out there about the neurobiology of how people learn. And if you're taking that new research and those new concepts and bringing them into how you build your current learning modules.
Yeah, I'm so pleased that you asked that question. Yes, we are. We think a lot about the learning architecture. Bye, Karen, thank you. We think a lot about the learning architecture and the learning approach that we take, whether that's scaffolded learning, to think about how we introduce concepts in sequence. I'm particularly interested in concepts around neural priming. So how you start to prime the brain to learn certain topics. Assessment can actually be a really interesting way of doing that. So there's some interesting research that shows if you take a exam or an assessment on something before you've learned it, you're actually priming your brain to understand, not only to look out for what's going to be on the test, but to start thinking through those questions. It's almost like a puzzle, and you're training your brain to start to engage that topic. So we look at a lot of learning theory and a little bit of neurobiology to start thinking about how can we be more effective at delivering learning experiences, particularly for people at work, that are going to be short but impactful and meaningful and highly relevant. I mean, I think relevancy is the other piece that's that we think a lot about. It's a great question.
Great, thanks for your question, Pat, and really appreciate your time today. Understanding how busy, no doubt, your schedule has become over the past couple of years. and continues to evolve. So thank you for all that you are doing. And Chris, again, fantastic message. I really hope it resonates very loudly with students. Again, you know, personally for me, the blessing of my Bates education was that nonlinear track and where the adventures that it has led me on and the experiences in the network, which still hold very, very dear spaces in my heart to this day. But on behalf of the College Key, thank you, congratulations. Again, these are the great messages that we are so thrilled to share with students and with staff and with faculty. So on behalf of the College Key, thank you for your time, for your wisdom, for your humor, and the advice for, you know, the next crop of Bates students and Bates alums who will be foraying out into the brave world of work. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Have a great day, everyone. And